going in with the Givenchy powder on, so I press it in my hand first because you don't want like a ton of powder right at the start. And you're gonna get right up into your under eyes using a pressing motion. And we're going down the side of the nose, front of the cheek. The front of the cheek is a really important spot to put your powder because it, what was I gonna say? Like a lot of people have pores here. Like even for me, you can see like all my little pores here. And then you suddenly powder them and they're like erased and you look airbrushed. Favorite foundation for oily, acne-prone girls that isn't super matte. I honestly don't use a lot of matte foundations, even on my clients, so I always just recommend Dior Backstage because I'd be lying if I was telling you I knew a bunch of good matte foundations. Okay, so that is looking good, but I don't just leave it at that. I'm a little excessive, and even on the day-to-day, I use at least 2 powders minimum. My powder never sits right under my eyes. Any tips? I mean, it's kind of hard to give those tips just because I don't know how you're doing your powder. Like if you did it a certain way and I saw it, then maybe I'd like be able to, but like just follow these steps and you shouldn't have any problems. Okay, so my favorite 2 powders right now, there's a couple. So I've been loving the Kosas Cloud powders, but I've also always loved the Make Up Forever foundation powders. This is a little bit more heavy duty. This is a bit more everyday, but they both look amazing. So, and I'd honestly say the longevity of them is very similar. And I've just been loving Kosas because it's like clean for your skin. Okay. My concealer looks too white. That's because you probably are using a concealer that's far too light for you. I do like to keep my concealer like pretty decently close to my skin tone. Okay, so now I'm taking this Kosas powder in the shade Feathery, going on my forehead because we don't want that to be shiny, going underneath my jaw, like where we contoured. And with this, I'm kind of like using tapping and pressing motions, but I'm not using a lot of pressure, so I'm not like moving anything around too much. This is the shade Feathery. And then we're gonna go in with a darker shade. This is the shade Softly. And this is my J21 brush from my Essential Brush Set from my brand. We're going over where we put that cream bronzer. And the reason I set my light cream bronzer with a darker face powder versus just like another bronzer is I feel like face powders are meant to last and meant to look really good and like flawless on the skin, whereas I find some bronzers personally go like patchy on me. So I've always leaned towards a face powder. In the past, it was the Dior face powder in the shade 4N. However, it is like discontinued right now. So then I like to pinch this brush because it's a really nice shape and you can just kind of go down the side of your nose, reinforce that nose contour. Okay. Okay, I'm like so bad at dropping things. Go underneath the nose to lift it. And then I also like to go like under here to sculpt. I've also been gua shawing lately and it has been a game changer. Okay, so face is feeling set. I kind of want a little bit more bronzer, which is totally optional. I obviously have like tons of makeup here because I'm a makeup artist, but where is the bronzer I want to use? So I love the Patrick Ta foundation, or not the foundation, like the bronzer thing. So I'm just gonna go in with some extra bronzer. And now that like my bronzer area is set with a face powder, this will go on super seamlessly. So just going in that same area and I'm really packing it on. So I'm like pressing and not swiping. If you find your makeup ever looks patchy, I swear, like switch up the technique that you're applying. So just keep pressing it in and your makeup will look so much better, I promise. And then again under here and a little bit more on the nose. And I'm not super, I'm not super precise with my nose contour because I don't like it to be like too harsh lines. If anything, I also like to go like over my nose because then when we highlight it, it'll look super cute. Okay, next step, we're gonna go over with some blush. I would say for me, my favorite blush is this Dior blush. You in the shade Pink. I also like the shade Rosewood if you're not like a super pink person. Okay, so I like to start in my temple, so I start really high. I don't like to start on the front of the cheek because if you go in with like a fully loaded brush on the front of your cheek and then you have way too much, it's really hard to blend out, versus like if you do it on the side, it's just, and you get like too much there. It's not the end of the world and like easier to blend out. So again, I just like to go in the front of my cheek here, on top of my nose. Just like that. My under eyes tend to crease a lot no matter what concealer. Do you recommend setting right away? You don't necessarily need to set right away. However, before you go back in and powder, make sure you look in a mirror nice and close and there's no creases. Like blend it out first and then set it. So you just need to make sure you're setting it before it's creased, and then you should be good. How can you prevent cream blush / bronzer looking muddy when they are set with powder? Because you're setting, like you have to set it with like a good shade essentially. A lot of people set it with either too dark of a shade and that's when it starts to look muddy. So just make sure it's like just a little bit darker than your skin tone, not like a complete different bronzer shade. A closet tour. Honestly, my closet is a mess right now and I'm sharing my closet with my boyfriend, so I'm like, it's packed. So I don't know if a closet tour would help you guys very much. How do you put blush on the area under your eye where it doesn't stick towards the outer corner? Once you put on highlight and everything, it kind of just blends itself. So trust the process. Okay, so now we're gonna do highlight. I'd say my favorite powder highlight is the Dior one. It's so, what's the word? Universal. Like you can use it for eyeshadow, you can use it for highlight, you can top your cheeks with the pink one. So I am mixing the two light ones, going over my nose. I love a good nose highlight. And then I'm taking the pink and the gold and I'm going in that area that the blush wasn't sticking to under the eye, because that's where you want to put the highlight. And so you can see now it's all kind of starting to blend. So just mixing those. And then I also like to go above my eyebrow for a really pretty like lifted look. And the thing about highlight, I get a lot of questions like, what is a good highlighter for people with textured skin? If you have lots of texture on your skin, like say if you have like lots of acne up here or like on your nose, I would just maybe stay away from highlight, because at the end of the day, like highlight draws attention to things. So if you're putting sparkles over top of like a problem area, then it isn't like the best